Hello, everybody. This is the Asea 5 for July 15th, 2022. Welcome from around the world. As Dr. Marine says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and so we're going to get started right now. It's actually, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, where our Dr. Malmed is from, and 9 o'clock in the morning with Dr. Ray Dixon, who comes at us from Phuket, Thailand. So we've got quite a representation here. My name is Dr. Lee Osler. I'm one of the regular Asea 5 hosts, and we'll excuse Jim and Ann Glenn and Dr. Maureen Hayes, who are in the Dominican Republic, enjoying some sunshine and some rewards there. They'll be back with us next week. I have with me to help me in this hosting role, Dr. Ray Dixon. If you could kind of salute, and he's the one that has the green Asea shelf behind him. He is a wonderful Asea expert and anchors the entire Eastern Hemisphere, I'm sure. He's a chiropractor, naturopath, and he's going to weigh in a little bit. What we have as our special guest tonight, Dr. Foster Malmed. He is a chiropractor by profession who's been with Asea almost as long as dirt, right from the beginning. And so he hails from the northeastern part of the United States. Foster, if you could come on and maybe kick us off and tell us a little bit, for those who don't know you. I'm not sure why anybody wouldn't know you, but for those who don't, give us your background, kind of how you got into this and what it was for you that brought Asea to your attention.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for inviting me. And it's an honor to be on here with you and Dr. Dixon. It's a joy to be able to get this message out further. So just about 12 years ago, a friend who was a professional network marketer reached out to us and said, I have this amazing new product. I don't understand it. It's an athletic product. And he said something that I knew he didn't understand. He said it improved VO2 max. And he told me some percentages, and I knew he didn't know what that meant. But he said it's made from saline. It comes from Salt Lake City. And it's a network marketing product. And doesn't that make you want it? And I was incredibly skeptical, actually chuckled a little bit, but he was a good friend. And so I said, sure, send us some, knowing that it wasn't going to do anything, but I was supporting a friend, actually just trying to shut him up. And so after going on the product, he didn't know that my wife, Terry, who was quite ill for many years, he didn't know that she was ill. And after being on the product for 3 days, on the landing right up there behind us, she came over here, and as the story goes, and it's true, I was sitting in that chair right there reading a newspaper back when I used to read a newspaper. And she said, I don't know what's going on, but I have no discomfort at all. And I said, that's great. I'm very happy. I'm going to go work in the hospital. I was a hospital chiropractor at the time, and I just went to work, and it was awesome. She was having a good day. And so a few days went by, and she was just feeling better and better. And she said a couple of times, I think you should look at this stuff. And I said, oh, that salt water thing from Salt Lake City in the network marketing model, I'm actually not that interested, but I'm glad that you're feeling better. So more days went on, and I was working in the hospital, and one of my patients mentioned an allergen that was very high and that she was struggling. And I said, nope, it's fine. I'm feeling fine. And she said, look on your laptop. And I did. And it was through the roof. I was fine. And that didn't make any sense. At the time I was 53 and having some brain fog issues. I was having some energy issues, some stomach issues, and all those things were changed by midday. And I went home and said to my wife, I don't know what's going on. I said, but I feel amazing. My brain is like a laser. It hasn't been in years. And she said, now you look at that stuff. And I said, oh, you mean that saltwater stuff? I'll look, but I'm not too optimistic that it's going to change you and I the way we feel changed. So I decided I'd go and just look at that Science of Healing Revealed book written by the physicist. And this is true. This is going to change the world. And we went to the launch of the company back in September of 2010. And we got to hear stories that made people cry that as a skeptical New York doctor, I didn't really believe much of, but it was interesting. I met the executives, I met the physicist. We got on the plane, didn't really know what to do with this. And I said, I'm going to give this to a handful of my patients who had the same thing as my wife, which was we didn't know what it was. We just knew they struggled. They did medications. Nobody could help them. And they all had amazing results sometime between 3 days and 3 months. And as I started seeing that and using it in the hospital, and before the question gets asked, all we knew was 2 ounces twice a day back then. We didn't know anything different. That's what everybody did. And we saw great results. And then when one of my favorite patients had a condition that was grave, and I got him on the product, and I just bumped into him at the gas pump a few months ago, and that's been almost 12 years. When I saw that, that's what got us really interested in sharing this. And the more I research, my skepticism was gone a decade ago, and now it's just our job to share this.
What was it that you were researching? How did you go about that to satisfy that science curiosity?
Well, as you know, back 12 years ago, if you go on pubmed.gov and you put in redox signaling molecules, there wasn't a whole lot to read. But what I read was very interesting, and there were no studies that said it didn't work, that it wasn't important. And then as I spoke to the physicist, he said, you know, every one of those published studies, you got to figure each one of those studies took about 1,000 hours of research to come up with that study. And if you see 1,000 studies, figure that's about 1 million hours of research, and that's only what's published. And he said, just watch what happens over the next 10 or 15 years, because we're 10 to 15 years ahead of our time. And he was absolutely right.
So let's switch over to Dr. Ray Dixon. Now, the thing here is that both of you are, by profession, you're both chiropractors. And so I'd like to weave some of that, you know, the physical modality in with this concept of what is redox signaling, how does it affect what you guys, and the lenses you look through at health, which is unique. It's not mine. I look at the mouth and, you know, I try to get into the rest of the body, but you see the whole body from a very different angle. Dr. Ray, could you start that off? And then I want to kick it over to Foster and have him follow.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you equally for giving me the opportunity to be here. It's a great pleasure. I love interacting with you all. Most had it for about 5 years and went to do yoga. And the husband of my yoga teacher was a chiropractor and a naturopath, and treated my asthma, and I've never had it since, and I'm 66 years of age. So that changed my world. I decided that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. So that brought me into the natural healing model, underpinned by what's called vitalism, that the body, when it gets what it needs, is able to heal itself. And then the two sides from a naturopathic as opposed to a chiropractic perspective, they're really not opposed at all. They both work on the principle of removing obstacles to the body being able to heal itself. So whether that is subluxations affecting the central nervous system, affecting organs, so the removal of those obstacles to healing from that sense is that same concept of providing the body with what it needs to heal itself. The naturopathic side simply brings in the whole world of nutrition, diet, the essential nutrients that cells need, up to 50 of those, be they minerals, trace minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, whatever. So they really, from my perspective, they're very, very much complementary, referring to chiropractic and naturopathic and even herbal medicine, you know, phytochemicals and, you know, varying carotenoids and polyphenols and all that antioxidant material is all underpinning the natural medicine model, which is referred to as vitalism. So they were a natural fit to me. I also had this wonderful positive experience with the removal of what had been my worst challenge at that time of my life with asthma. I remember many times at night struggling to breathe and just crying. It was a real painful process. I still have deformed ribs, actually, from that struggle that happened way back in my teenage years. So that put me on the trajectory that I am still on to this day. And in fact, with Asea Redox, as Dr. Malmed said, this is a continuation of that particular model of understanding. It just so happens that redox signaling molecules are a relatively new discovery, but they are still at the coalface of what drives cells, what cells need to be able to heal themselves. So it's just a no-brainer for me once I equally, as Dr. Malmed, understood what these were. And so it's like a kid in a candy shop for me. I hope that answers the question, Lee. What about you, Dr. Malmed?
It's a great question. I love your description. I love your varied approach to it. It's so great. So the chiropractic school that I went to back when almost chiropractic was invented, I've been doing it now almost 40 years. We talked a lot about the body's innate intelligence, the body's life force, the thing that chiropractors, our job, so I'm not a healer. What I do is I just realign. I try to remove nerve interference with whatever technique that I use or anybody uses. And then the hope is now we can take the pressure and the interference off the central nervous system. And now the body's life force, the body's innate intelligence can do its job. And so I'm a bit of a maverick. I think redox signaling molecules are innate intelligence because I consider them the operating system of our cells. And if it's directing all of these biological processes, that to me is the body's innate intelligence, and that's what's running the show. And without it, we're dead. But when we have more of it in balance, that's when our body can do exactly what it's supposed to do, which is heal itself. So when I work in my own clinic, I work in Manhattan some, I work in my home office, I'm doing some fun things. I work with different foundations in my office, and one of the primary foundations is the molecular foundation. So all of my patients know that if you're looking to be at your best, if you'd like to have your wellness, your vitalism optimized, you need to drink this product. And if it's not for them, just let me know who it is that would like to be younger and healthier, and that's who I'd like to speak to.
So go back, if you would. You talked about this, I like that innate intelligence, this operating system. Can you, there's people I'm sure who are joining us or who will watch this in replay, and they're going to wonder, well, what are you talking about? What is redox? What do you mean operating system? Could you go there?
I absolutely could. Okay, so we'll go back to before redox was even thought about as a signaling molecule. There was the chiropractic model, which started back in 1895 with the Palmer family. I went to Palmer College of Chiropractic, and they were very, very focused on our job was to release the body's innate intelligence, the brains inside the body, inside, we didn't even use the word cells back then, but that ran the healing properties of the body. So there are lots of chiropractors out there who they'll just tell you, I am adjusting you to make sure that your innate intelligence, your healing capacity can function at its peak. When we drink Asea, if you're not going to the chiropractor, but you should, but if you're not going to the chiropractor and you're drinking Asea, you are optimizing your wellness. You are helping your body's, I consider the operating system. That's what those molecules do. They run the protection. They run the detection. They run the repair. They run the replacement. They run all of these necessary processes to keep us alive and keep us doing well, the quantity and the quality of our life. I consider Asea our innate intelligence, and we were just able to now replenish it with a supplement. So
you made kind of almost a disparaging reference to the idea that this was salt water from Salt Lake City. So, in that in that sense, What is it? I mean, what is it that you do? You've got this blue bottle of stuff. It says saline on it. It's like, what is this innate intelligence in a bottle?
So I'm not necessarily explaining to my patients that it's the innate intelligence. I will explain it to other chiropractors. Some will malign me because it's a bit of an affront to their theory of this life force that's running around in our body. And I like to think of it as pluses and minuses in biochemistry. And that's how it really gets done. I actually had a discussion with a very high level chiropractor. And I said, I think that talking about innate intelligence actually holds us back. And if we can actually make it something that you can put your hands or your microscope on and say, that's what's running the healing process. It's not a mystery anymore. And as chiropractors, when we can realign things so that the central nervous system, the immune system that's run by that can function the way it should, now our redox system can work the way it was designed.
If I can add, this is still part of the whole vitalism model, of course. And, the body has evolved into what it is with that innate intelligence to take care of that body if it gets what it needs. Now, talking at the operating system, it's a matter of, there is an interface there. You mentioned that in your book, Dr. Lee, in terms of at the interface of energy and matter. Now, these are the deepest signaling chemical molecules that have ever been discovered, nano size, no more than 4 atoms. So we're right at the pinnacle, if you like, of chemistry. But what's behind that? Now, when you move into those realms from a vitalistic perspective, if it's Chinese medicine, you're talking about qi or qi. If it's yoga, Ayurvedic, coming out of India, etc., it's prana. So the homeopaths refer to it as vital force. So these are actually synonyms. They're one and the same from different cultures and different language. But where does that meet chemistry? Now, I think as it stands today, we are landing in the same place in terms of Foster and myself, Dr. Malmed and myself, and that is that innate intelligence has to work its way down into the cellular function and health and healing. And my view is part of that step-down process, a very significant part of that step-down process, is redox signaling molecules. So I'm not necessarily saying that is the end of the intelligence, but that is a very, very important interface representing that intelligence.
So we could call it part of the vitalism cascade.
Correct.
And it's there, and the question is, what's the top of that cascade? And people are going to have their own thoughts. Religion is going to, what are you pointing at? Is it, do you have a leak in the ceiling? What's going on there? Exactly. So there are things that are not meant for this discussion, but I understand and I do not disagree.
So let's talk, first I want to talk about redox molecules. Let's talk about like what it is in that, we're kind of in conceptual. And then I'd like to transition into cellular performance, because we have in this company introduced some new redox active, this powered by redox idea, that we are redox active. And I think there's a difference between redox active and redox signaling. So let's maybe kind of touch on that. Dr. Ray, do you want to start, and then let's go to Foster?
Well, if you've got, there are many signaling molecules in the human body. I think we need to keep that big perspective in place. Now, hormones and neurotransmitters are well known by most people. They know, they may not know their names, but they know that signaling across cells, including nerve cells, takes place through chemicals in many cases, or voltage. So neurotransmitters, hormones are well known as very powerful signaling messages in the human body. Then you can step that down into lesser known signaling molecules vital to one's health and fitness and well-being. And we get into prostaglandins and cytokines and a whole kind of barrage of other signaling molecules. But with these ones being responsible for everything else that follows, you know, for cells to function, use nutrition, repair their organelles, their own organs, if you like, they're called organelles. This is all powered by redox. It is redox signaling that tells the genes and the DNA via the redoxome what to do with these essential requirements to the cell. I think myself that if this is, and it appears to be, at the pinnacle at this point in time, we know of nothing else from a chemical redoxome level. We're not aware of anything deeper that's driving all of this. Then it has to affect everything. So, and that includes the use of nutrition. So my perspective on the way many things have worked in the past in terms of nutritional or herbal, food as medicine, is that in some way they have to affect the redoxome, even though we didn't know about it then, in some way. We already know that a lot of the benefits of fitness and exercise come from the increased mitochondrial density and efficiency. Well, that's where redox molecules are made, from salt water. So that means, therefore, a lot of the benefits of exercise are due to redox signaling molecule. But as this is the first supplement that's ever been available as a supplement from outside the body, that makes this especially unique, because there's never been any other way other than using those essential nutrients and fitness to increase one's redoxome activity. Well, now we also have this. So we actually are able to supplement with trillions of these molecules that's never been available before. And I think it needs to be, we all need to remind each other that the whole concept of the body functioning at its optimum is physiologically known as homeostasis, which is all about balance. So you can have too much of any one side, including with redox signaling molecules. So funny about that. So with this supplement, we could actually get the balance and get the numbers back to their optimum levels. And as far as I'm aware, there is no other way to do that. Exercise alone is not sufficient to compensate for the decline in mitochondrial density and efficiency from puberty. But this is as good as it gets at our point in time, not only in our lives, in human history. That's what makes it so exciting. And we are the lucky ones that eventually paid attention. Now, I say that from Foster and Terry's perspective, a dramatically quick result for her suffering brought a focus to their mind and investigations. When I was first told about this, I was about 61, about 60, and I paid no attention because I was perfectly well. I was not on any drug medications. I had no sickness. I was told about it by a world karate champion, Lorraine Bavard, who was a good friend and patient of mine. And redox signaling molecules, never heard of them, figured I would know if they were of any consequence at that point in my life. Well, I was wrong. I was very wrong. So the science was there. I just wasn't up with the science. And the product was there. I just refused to pay attention to it. And when I finally did and realized how extraordinary a discovery this has been and how life-changing, I will never stop taking it. And could I just ask a quick question of you, Dr. Foster? When you mentioned the light bulbs coming on for you and the difference you were feeling, I just wanted to clarify. So you were obviously taking that salt water from Salt Lake City on your wife's behest not expecting it to do anything. Is that correct?
Do I have to admit that in front of hundreds of people? It's a great question. And the answer is sort of, okay, if you'll do it, I'll do it. And I didn't tell her that I had really no expectations. But unlike you, I had horrible genetics and I was already suffering at the age of 53. So I had positive findings on my Dopplers, on my echoes, in my lipids. I had lots of issues that had already begun. I had a cardiologist at the age of 53. And so when I went on this product and I saw objective improvements that by that time I was able to explain, but it was nothing short of a miracle. And so like you, I will never not be on this. I probably drink more than most of the people on this call. I'm sure we'll get to how muches and wherefores. Yeah, so I had absolutely no faith that this would do anything. I just knew back then I was donating $120 something to a friend for some junk that I was going to ingest that would do nothing. And I'm a skeptical New Yorker, and it changed everything. And, you know, as people say, and I did this in Vegas, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. The guy who told us about it said all the wrong things, and he left the company about a month after he got us into the company. He went to some other company. And so it was purely by luck and by my inquisitiveness in this miracle that happened to my wife. Mine was much less important to me. And when I got my wife back, I had to see what this was. And then again, the research was sort of fledgling back then, but the stories just kept it going and going. And as I saw patients with things that could not get better, and we saw changes that just made us cry on each other, that's pretty powerful, and we'll just never stop sharing it.
So Foster, could you explain that story about how this came to be? It's like, why is this not out there? Why don't you've both mentioned this. It's like, you know, if I could use my words, it's like, you know, my arrogance kept me from looking at this initially. Because, you know, if it would have come from some important source, you know, from a textbook or, you know, a medical meeting, why I might have viewed it differently, but it didn't. It kind of came into your attention through the back door and really kind of unsuspect. So maybe you can explain to people who are going to watch or who are viewing now, you know, where did this come from? Why did it come this route? And maybe kind of fill in those blanks for us.
Are you asking for the brief synopsis of the genesis?
You could do that.
I mean, we're very blessed to know Virtus and Tyler very well. So, you know, this all started, you know, lots of network marketing companies start with people who want to build us something and they go and look for a something product. This was not that way. This was some product was developed in a lab that had some miraculous results with some focus groups that they did in the beginning, and didn't really know why. They didn't really know what they had. And then as luck would have it, they asked Virtus Norton, who was the original founder of this company, to see if he could come on board and try to find some investors to try to get them more money because they just ran out of money. They spent a lot of money on research, and they couldn't find money. But in the meanwhile, Virtus had some great results and knew, his quote was, they had something that was very powerful and they didn't know what it was. And so he put his own investors together and bought this technology and then brought on the physicist. And he knew that if he could get this stabilized, because it wasn't stable back then, it was fleeting, it lasted minutes. So you had to be in the presence of the machines to be able to drink it to see the results. So they brought in the physicist. They knew they needed either a biochemist or some sort of atomic physicist to be able to try to stabilize this. And so purely by luck, and it's a great story of, I think, divine intervention, how it is they got connected with the physicist, and he was able to do it. And they then knew that their answer was they had to reward their investors. So they went to a drug company right here in New Jersey and said, we have redox signaling molecules and we'd like to sell it to you. And they said, it's not possible, but we'll look. And they flew a team out and they looked And they said, yes, you have it. And so the drug company offered them a huge amount of money and offered a check. And they said, and by the way, we're going to need all those machines. We're going to need all the technology. We need all the drinks. We need that now. And Virtus said, wait a minute, I have some very important people who will suffer terribly if they don't have this product. And the drug company, which is a shock to everyone, said, that's business. If you want the money, you're going to have to give up everything, and your friends can't have the product and they might suffer, but those things happen. And he said, I'm not doing that to my friends. And so he needed to find another way. He was a marketing genius, and he had a friend who said, you need to look at this network marketing model. You have the intellectual property, you have the patents, you have the product, you have the machines, you have the money, you have the intellect, you have everything. And he said, if we keep this ethical, and they have, we can run with this globally, and miss how we got blessed to hear about it and got to be able to share it with others.
If I can continue the elephant in the room, which is why Foster and I didn't hear about it through the normal mechanisms of through the chiropractic channels, or through, even in my case, remember, as a naturopath, my practitioners supply companies of the best, I would say, supplements in the world weren't talking about redox signaling molecules either. So this didn't come to me through the normal channels. You know, I've attended integrative medicine conventions up until just pre-COVID, where there was no mention of redox signaling molecules right here in Bangkok with 750 doctors. And that was only a few years ago. And by the way, I have the agenda for the one coming up next month, and it's not mentioned there either. Although I do know one of the functional medicine doctors presenting at that convention who is using Asea Redox, but there is no mention of it in the agenda of that convention. So because it was registered as a food supplement, so it didn't go through the pharmaceutical route, you now automatically are subject to the laws of the land and what you can say and what you can't say. And in the midst of that is a lot of truth cannot be told. It has to be put in certain ways. We're providing the body with what it uses to heal itself. The product doesn't heal at all. It just gives the body what it needs to heal itself. We're forced into that realm. And so the direct marketing route was the obvious way, the word of mouth, to get this around the world to as many people as quickly as possible, which was to achieve Virtus's dream of leaving his legacy of helping as many people as possible. So it's landed in the world in a very different way, in the sense of a product that does allow the body to heal itself, even from a natural healing perspective. Now, it's still working. It's in 33 countries. It's exploding around the world. So the word of mouth method is definitely effective and working. And we happen to be beneficiaries, having paid attention to that method of getting it out there. And of course, you talked about the arrogance of practitioners. I guess it just comes, it's kind of one of those dichotomies. The more you know you don't know, for many of us. But also the more you know in a given area, the more you think you know compared to other people. So we're kind of bouncing around in that world. And you noticed Foster's initial reaction, salt water from Salt Lake City, really? Same here. You know, why would I be hearing about it from a patient of mine who's not a practitioner? I don't know from your perspective, Dr. Lee, but I'm sure you would have had some of the, what was it, fishbone in the throat from the direct marketing model. But we've all crossed that bridge now and know it for what it really is, which is a blessing for me to be part of now, sharing it around the world as well.
So you've talked about, thank you, Foster. That was really a great summary. I appreciate that. How big is this going to be? I mean, when you put it all together, where is this going?
Well, Ray, between Ray and I and a few others, we should have it in the offices of probably 50, 60,000 chiropractors globally soon. And I call that a start. The dentists are all yours. And that's a start. But it's
the problem is the prophets never have honor in their own backyard, and that's
exactly. So that's why I'm going to use this video for the two of you. Exactly. I need other experts with briefcases. So, we look at where we were, where we are. We are going to be $1 billion company. Is it going to be in 2 years? Is it going to be in 5 years? It doesn't matter. And at some point, we're going to hit that tipping point, and people are just going to want it. Is it going to come through the healthcare professionals? That's going to be a chunk of it, but most of it's going to be lay people who don't need to know as much science necessarily as we're exposing them to this evening or this morning. But this is going to become a massive move as, once the research, once it goes from 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 to 1 million studies. And now, you go on PubMed.gov or scholar.google.com and just put in whatever thing you're interested in and redox balance, redox homeostasis. Just start putting in those buzzwords and you're going to see there are very important people doing very important research right where we already are. And they're still catching up, and they're going to catch up, and it's going to get really fun.
Yeah, here's the deal as I see that, is that, all that research is headed in the direction of mostly pharmacological support for redox. They're making pharmacology. They're still going to get their billions of dollars, from the drug side, because they're developing some very specific, solutions that are targeted. They're aiming at redox switches in these biological pathways where they can turn specific things on and off. But it's kind of like, once that gets out there and the word redox, the word signaling, the word, that gets into the lexicon of marketing, and doctors are speaking about the effect of XYZ on your redox. It's like, well, everybody's going to be thinking redox. And, I think that's what's marvelous about what we have, is because we're playing at the most basement level. Dr. Ray talked about the redoxome. The redox landscape is every redox sensitive transcription factor, just kind of put a big word out there. But those are the switches that activate these pathways that tell your genes what to do and what not to do. That's all redox. And so we're going to see that support kind of paradoxically, from the pharmacological big pharma and even many other supplement companies who will feign claim that they have something that is redox signaling, and it isn't, and it won't be. However, to give them credit, and even maybe to transition to what we have for cell performance, there are many substances out there in our diet and in herbs and in supplements that are quote unquote redox active. They play on the redox landscape with some specificity. And, Ray, you were going to say something, and then maybe you could take that and take it into cell performance. I'd still like that to come up.
Well, first comment is, what else can Big Pharma do but try to manipulate the redoxone? Right. I mean, that's part of the mechanistic model of Big Pharma. So they have nowhere else to go. But I suppose before we move on is, do you think Big Pharma has a better intelligence than the human evolution and body and from wherever it came from in being able to take care of itself if it gets what it needs? So we're back to that initial model once again of vitalism as opposed to mechanism. So Big Pharma's got nowhere else to go. And quite frankly, as this unravels across the world, and note, most people don't come because of the research, including us arrogant doctors. We don't come because of the research. We came because of results. So once the results are known out there across a much larger populace, which is evolving by the second, there is going to be a critical point of the cascade where it's going to literally explode and everyone is going to want it and everybody's going to be using it, whether their GP, MD, chiropractor, naturopath knows about it or not. That's already happening on a much smaller scale. To transition across as Asea now is from giving the redox signaling molecules as the flagship product and letting the body make use of those with its intelligence. It's kind of logical that you would then support the power of those redox signaling molecules with other of those essential nutrients. So the perspective I have on this, which seems to fit with where Asea is going, is first they made available the VIA range of super nutritionals. And they were wise enough to follow the more advanced later models of using superfood or plant-based herbal sources in their entirety, not selecting individual nutrients, which is a little bit like Big Pharma again, but with vitamins and minerals. So they put out there these major supplements for the microbiome, as in biome, pre and probiotics. They put the omega-3, purest forms available in omega. So they put those foundational source, like an equivalent to a multi-superfood nutritional supplement. And then they moved to cell performance. Now, this is an interesting world, and I'm sure we've all got a slightly different take on this. Everything is about cell performance. So let's not get lost in the buzzwords, okay? Everything is about cell performance. Redox is about cell performance. Nutrition is about cell performance. Water is an essential nutrient. It's about cell performance. pH balance is about cell performance. But if you want to particularly target an area like memory, mind, concentration, then we know the science is already there on certain super nutritionals that will help that process. In other words, drive your redox further down that channel, down that pathway. So the cell performance mind was designed to help maintain focus and concentration, which spills over into memory. The mood, perhaps in my perspective, I might have named it calm, because there are many moods. But the target, always look at the outcome that formula was designed around. It was designed balance to the sympathetic. Now, the sympathetic is the fear, fright, flight, stress response. The parasympathetic is the calming, relaxation, chilling out dimension. So the mood / calm was designed to channel your redox down that pathway. So if you happen to be a high anxiety prone person, that's the one you want to use more. If your energy is lacking, then you would use energy. And again, the target nutrients, including botanicals are herbs or plants, was all then based around building maximum energy. Show me a depressed person who's energetic.
Perfect.
Find one. So energy rules everything. It underpins everything. And so my two favorites, we all have our favorites as to where we want to channel the power of redox. And it'd be nice to hear you elaborate on your connection to that too, Dr. Lee. But, which way you want to power your redox is which cell performance do you feel you need more help with? I'm like a kid in a candy shop playing with all of these supplements and cell performance products, and I wait for more to unravel. But the flagship, Asea Redox Signaling Molecules, will always remain that to me, the Redoxone. Over to you guys.
Wow, that was beautiful, by the way. It's a beautiful explanation.
Tell us more, Foster. What is your take on the cell performance?
Wow. So I was around in the beginning when all we had was the flagship product. And when we started coming out with other products, I wasn't happy. I thought that we should just be the flagship Redox supplement company. So just to diverge for a second, so when they came out with Source, this beautiful superfood micronutrient multi, I was already taking stuff. I knew I didn't need it, but I was on the medical board and I had to be a beta tester, and I tried it. Now, I'm sure Ray doesn't know this, but sometimes chiropractors, after working for 30, 40 years, their hands don't feel so good. So I had to adapt the way that I adjusted, because this finger didn't really work that well anymore because I had just used them too much. So now I won't show you which finger I was using, but it was the next one. So when I started taking Source, within a couple of weeks, I realized my hands felt perfect. And that made no sense. Asea made everything feel better, the Redox supplement, but now I'm taking this multi and my hands were perfect. So of course, because we're researchers, I had to go off it, and I had to just clear myself out and take a break for a couple of weeks, and it came back. And I went back on it and it went away. And that was enough of an ABAB design for me to know this company knows what they're doing when they're sourcing ingredients. So I am a huge fan of the Via line. Then they come out with Cell Performance, and I see they're going to come out with things that are labeled, and they're going to do great things for important parts. And so I was intrigued, but when I saw how they sourced them and the ingredients, and how we don't have to make claims. There are already claims for the nutrients and the herbals and the botanicals that are in these products. And as Dr. Dixon says, it just sends the redox pathway. It just turns it right on with proven science. Sometimes these are sourced from other companies, which is awesome. They already have their claims. They've done the research. We can get into other countries already with those products and those ingredients. They're brilliant products. Now, Dr. Dixon, you don't know me. You might think that I should take mood, but I typically don't. I love my energy levels. I love my brain working at full capacity. I take energy and mind every single day. I never miss it. If I forget to make it in the morning, I have to run upstairs between patients and go make it so that I can have it. Terry makes it for me. They are brilliantly made. And the synergy between Asea Redox supplement and the Cell Performance products is so much better than I had imagined. And I can't wait to see if they have any others coming out in the future.
I think I was the same as you, Dr. Foster, in that I had a barrage of supplements that had been in my clinic for years. And I didn't quite want to throw them out when I left Australia. I gave many to college clinics, actually, but I still had, as you know, supplements are used by date. So I was continuing to use a number of those. But because these supplements are latter day made, they are made with the latest knowledge and information available. That's why they went for superfood sources. That's why the latest nutritional knowledge is in the Cell Performance products. So my advice is to use the Via and or the Cell Performance products, because they have that perfect synergy to drive your redox further. They were designed that way. So you won't get better. Yes, there are great products. You might get as good, but they weren't designed to work with redox. They didn't know about redox. So to me, it's fairly logical that where possible, we would benefit most and most optimally by using the products designed to work with redox.
Perfect.
So I have to ask this question. We've got two chiropractors who deal with the physical modalities. I do a lot of TMJ, and I require, physical therapy and chiropractic to be a part of this composite balancing act here. And so, but what I've noticed, and this is kind of my personal experience, I'm a dentist with great inflexibility, so I really have no need for physical therapy or chiropractic, as you could imagine, right? So it was like, not anyway, but I've noticed that.
What's Foster?
But what I've noticed
I'm
is
just listening right now. It's awesome.
what I've noticed is how much more flexible I am. I am more flexible now than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly even when I was in high school. How do you explain that?
Well, I think simply it's making your tissues function better. Simply. So, we know it's cells, and then it's tissue, and it's organs, and it's muscles, and you're just reaping the benefits of your cellular repair in your muscles and your tendons and your ligaments. And by the way, as a quick aside, Terry married me because I fixed her TMJ. Just to be clear. That's a story for another webinar.
Yes, that will be another one. Ray, any last thoughts there? And then I've got a few follow-up questions as we finish here.
Sure. As Foster has said, you are reversing the aging process when you are on a redox signaling molecule supplement. So what does that mean? Well, it means everything's getting younger. You are biologically winding the clock back. Your management of inflammation is reducing. The chronic inflammation that develops with age and wear and tear, known as degeneration or degenerative joint disease, or more commonly known as osteoarthritis, is reversing to some degree. Obviously, you can't fully reverse a totally destroyed joint, but as Foster has indicated, the fact that the pain is less, the inflammation is less, then the joints move better. So flexibility to some degree will return. And of course, you will experience a great deal of pain relief because of the reversal of that inflammatory process. And the chemicals that drive inflammation stimulate pain fibers. It's part of the body's defense mechanism to protect that area. So with that regeneration taking place, that's why the flexibility will come back and discomfort will get less and less or disappear altogether. And once again, note the results are what capture people. It was the source's result on Foster that captured him, even though at first he wasn't happy to move away from the flagship product. So again, results speak for themselves. Can I just quickly ask you, Foster, if I may, Dr. Lee, with all of your extensive knowledge in kinesiology, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that attend chiropractors, aka applied kinesiology specialists like yourself. And I have no doubt you would have done a great deal of testing in your early weeks and months, because we always use our patients as guinea pigs to test a new product. So can you just share what your experience was with muscle testing and what you found it revealed regarding redox signaling molecules?
I would be elated to answer that question. So as an applied kinesiologist for almost 40 years, you can be sure when I decided that it was time to bring it into the hospital on the down low, because I knew I was under a microscope, a lot of people, probably only 95%, didn't want the chiropractor in the New York hospital. I was just finding weaknesses. I was first finding weaknesses, putting the product on their tongue. I'm not a fan of, holding the bottle. I like when it's on the tongue, under the tongue, getting tagged by the hypothalamus. We can really get a result. And weaknesses got better. But strength, so when we look for something that's not good for someone, we look to see if the product makes them weaker. and no one got weaker. And I tested that for months. So after months of making sure that it didn't have a side effect, that people's bodies were perfectly comfortable accepting this product, 100% of them did not weaken kinesiologically when I tested a strong muscle and I put some of the Asea in their mouth. So I stopped testing to see whether or not it was good or bad for people. So when people say, my kinesiologist said I don't test well, I question, is it in a bottle? Are they putting it on your stomach? Are they putting it on top of your head? I don't know what they're doing, but I did it in a hospital for months. I've been doing this for 12 years. I assure you, it doesn't have side effects. It's good for everyone. Sometimes we have to titrate up. Sometimes it's somebody else start them on an ounce, and then I'll just bring it up week by week. I'll just keep increasing it. And if they say, I'm detoxing too fast and that's the conversation, I'm getting a headache, I'm whatever, it's like, let's slow it down, drink more water, we'll go slower. Don't take 2 ounces twice a day, take 1 ounce 4 times a day, and let's just spread it out and let's just get it into the body any way we can, even if it's in tiny doses throughout the day.
Great. Thank you.
This has been great. I hope that everybody has enjoyed this great interview with two of the world's best chiropractors. And maybe the one dentist that gets it all anyway, but it's been a pleasure to have both of you with me and to have Dr. Ray, co-host this with me. The last comment I would make to everybody watching is, if you want to knock yourself out with the science, there's a lot of resources. There's some good books that have been written. There's 30,000 articles you can get into PubMed and do your own research, as Foster mentioned earlier. Just get into your search engine and put redox signaling and fill in the blank with whatever, and you will be amazed, what you can learn from that about the science. But, Foster, maybe you can give us, in exiting here, you can give us one tip, like what posture, what approach, what do you say to somebody? Because, if you're watching this and you don't know really what's going on, talk to the person, number one, who invited you to this. There's this video will be hosted on redoxmatters.com, as several ask for that. So you can find this information as well as all the other videos that we've done at CF5. You can drill into the information. But Foster, leave us with a tip here. How does somebody go from where they are right now to taking the next step forward?
Well, first they should order the Redox Matters and Healthy Matters books.
Okay.
They might be able to find that on redoxmatters.com. I'm not sure.
They might, yeah.
They might. Okay, that's a great first step. I come sometimes too much from the science perspective. I talk to patients. So I talk to patients primarily, and it's always, you came to see me, do you want to be at your peak? If you want to be at your peak and look and feel as young as possible, then you should go on this product and stay on it and not go off. It's as simple as that. When they say, what does it do? Again, I just let them know, this is made in the mitochondria. Every cell in your body has that, and it runs everything that needs to be repaired, everything that needs to be replaced with something younger and healthier. That's what it does. It's your operating system, and it is imperative. If you want optimal health, maybe you don't. But if you do, this is the path that you should take.
Good. So if this is new to you, please contact the person who invited you to see this video, whether it's right now or you're watching this in rewind, either way. But just get with somebody, because as we pointed out, this is a network company, and it's a word of mouth information exchange, which I love, because you really can't explain this unless you talk about the stories, because it affects every cell in the body. It kind of does everything. So we've appreciated our special guest, Foster Malmed. And next time we'll get your lovely wife, Terry, on with you, and we'll hear her tell her story. Dr. Ray, thank you for being a wonderful co-host, even chipping in from the other side of the world, from where I'm at. That makes you the foreigner. I'm not, see, because I'm right here. But we love your insight. You have such a keen intellect in your ability to verbalize these higher principles of the vitalistic idea, of what are these foundation molecules. And you were highly influential. I have to give you credit where credit is due. You were highly influential with me in guiding some of my early thinking as how I looked at these foundational principles. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to close out next week. I do not actually know who the guest is. Jim and Ann Glenn will be back, as will be Dr. Marine. So we'll hear some of their comments from being in the Dominican Republic with some of the other Asea leaders. But thank you again for joining with us and for being with us.